Yeah. Hello, everybody. Back again. My name is Ruben.
My name is Jose.
So we are a podcast. Our podcast name is Men Redefining Manhood. So welcome to Men Redefining Manhood, a podcast and movement for fathers and men ready to rewrite what it means to be men. This isn't about perfection. It's about presence. It's about healing, not hiding. It's about building men up, not tearing each other down. Let's redefine manhood together.
Yeah, thanks for giving that intro, Ruben. So today's podcast is going to be about men supporting their children through life's journey, and I think that that's something that we as parents can definitely relate with, and hopefully our audience is able to relate at some level as well, because it there's a lot that goes into supporting our children, but sometimes out of our own fear we might hold our children back from doing what what may be their calling, right?
Mhm.
And um and so where does that come from, right? What do you think? What's your thought on that?
I think it's just instinct, us as parents, we don't want our kids to get hurt, when we, teach them to ride a bike, we put helmet on, knee pads, we put everything on them,
Yeah.
we're still running kind of behind them about it. So I think also in life, for me, it was a very hard challenge, even though I know my son wasn't very far, to kind of let him go and move, 2 hours away for college. It was a little stress inducing for me because I'm like, you know, he doesn't know how to cook. He doesn't know how to do it. Yeah, I started thinking of all the things that he didn't know how to do. But I also had to kind of sit back, like what we were talking about a minute ago, um, and realize, no, me and my wife have raised him to be the young man that he is. Um, and he's been gone for a little bit and he's thriving. Like, I think he's doing very good. He's keeping his grades up. He has a routine that he's created for himself, but it's all on the goals and stuff that we've taught him. But I think as parents, we get fearful of the what ifs.
Yeah.
We're scared. What if can't do this? What if he got sick recently? And I was like, is he gonna know to take his medicine? He's 18. I'm like, he's grown. He has to learn these things, but also that fear is still there. Like, me and him actually had a conversation about it recently, about being a parent. Um, and I was telling him, yeah, um, the hardest part of being a parent is teaching our kids to grow up without us, learning to let go and allowing them to be themselves, and become men and women that are going to be productive in society. And it could be very scary. We live in a nasty world too, I think, where it's hard to think about.
Yeah, and that's a good point, right? Like we shield our children, right, from being exposed to what the harsh part of society offers, and then when it's their time to fly, right, we have that fear, perhaps maybe because we in that specific area we fell short in preparing them, or we begin to question our own abilities as parents. Did we do enough? Were we supposed to do more, and so forth? But the reality is that, as parents, I think it's part of the process. We're going to have that, right? We're going to have that experience of um, feeling, questioning whether we did enough,
Hmm.
right? When it's time for our children to um, spread their wings and fly. I can share my experience. Our youngest son, you know, uh, decided to join the military, and he joined the Air Force. And even through that process, I had multiple conversations with him about his options and about what was out there. But he was dead set on wanting to join the Air Force. And so my wife and I had a conversation about it, and as difficult as it was for us to accept and respect his decision, we came to a conclusion that you know he's an adult, and at some point in time we have to allow him to make his own decisions and be supportive of his decisions as long as they are decisions that are good natured, right?
Yeah.
And so we were like, he's not actually doing something wrong or something bad, that he's actually doing something that can help him grow, help him do something, better his life, right? Learn a skill and so forth. And so we had a conversation with him and we said, listen, you know what? We don't want you to feel like we're creating barriers for you and beginning and then causing you to question your own ability because of us.
Mhm.
Rather, we want you to feel that you're supported, and if that's what you want, we're supporting you 100% of the time, right?
Yeah.
Even though it was very difficult, right, to take on that stance because we're not a military family. We don't know what it is. My father-in-law, he was a Vietnam veteran, right? Rest his soul. But
Mhm.
beyond that, we haven't had anybody that's active or that's been recently in the military, for it to be normalized in that sense, right?
Mhm.
So for us, it's a completely new experience in navigating this process. But as a parent, your mind automatically goes to the extreme, right?
Mhm.
Like, what if something happens and I can't get there, in time, or And what I've learned is that at some point in time, you have to go ahead and have faith. You have to leave it in God's hands, and you have to pray, and you have to trust that wherever your child or your children are, that they're going to be in good hands.
Yeah, I know. And I feel that kind of goes in right. What I've been trying to do a lot more is leaning on my faith,
Mm-hmm.
because I do. I sit there and my son drives every weekend out here, so that fear as well. Like, what if you know, what if somebody hits him? What if he blows out a tire on the freeway? Is he gonna know how to change it? Is he gonna know how to call AAA? All
Sure.
those fears kick in, and I have to remind myself that I have to really lean on my faith and realize, no, me and my wife have taught him enough for him to be his own self, and us to not, myself mainly, to not have so much self-doubt in him. He's a good kid.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of that, my own internal battles kick in, my own
Sure.
trauma kicks in as well, and I start thinking like, did I teach him enough? Did I do this? Did I do that? But I think it has to do a lot with reflecting on how I was raised as well.
Absolutely.
On not giving, not really allowing. Like, I don't feel the way that I was raised. I didn't have a voice to be able to say certain things,
Mm-hmm.
um, and I think that kind of affected me a little bit in a way. The way that I raised him, I was like, I have to be completely different. I have to give him voice. I have to allow this, but also that fear as a parent. It's like, I want to be so protective. I want to hold him in a bubble, but
Right.
I can't. I got to let him grow because,
Mm-hmm.
again, he has to be his own man. He has to, eventually run through issues that are going to be struggle for him. And, I just have to realize that what I've taught him will hopefully show.
Yeah, we have to trust
Yeah,
that, right?
yeah, we have to
We have
trust
to
that
trust that
process. Yeah.
that we've done well as parents, and that they're going to utilize what we've taught them, in addition to what they're learning through their own experiences
Yeah.
in life. And I want to go back to something that you said earlier, which I think it's important, and hopefully our audience can also relate to this.
Mhm.
How our own traumas in life,
Mhm.
all of a sudden in situations with their children, come into play, or may come into play if we're not cognizant of them or check them, right?
Mhm.
Because I myself, like I come from Los Angeles. I was born in the Westlake district of Los Angeles, um, in the Rampart area to be exact. Wasn't the best of neighborhoods until this day. It still isn't the best of neighborhoods. It's actually a very, very, very difficult environment to grow up in. Gang infested, violence.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you name it, right? And so now, fast forward, what happens, with my kids when they wanted to go out and have a burger with friends or wanted to go catch a movie and stuff, right? My mind automatically went to a worst case scenario based off of my own past experiences.
Mm-hmm.
Son, I don't want you to be out there too late. Like, you know what? There's nothing good out there at night. Like there's people out there looking for trouble and so forth. And I remember, my youngest son, Jacob, saying, Dad, you know what? Life is very different. We're not living how you lived. And that was a very good point. I was like, you're absolutely right.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to learn to take a step back and, you know, um, loosen the ropes, and just, okay, you know what, if you're going to go out, have a good time, be safe. That was it. Right. That's the best I can do because that's the reality. Right. And I came to that realization, like, you know what, it's true. Like I was out late at night. And when I was out late at night, there was a lot of chaos happening, to the extent that, maybe I was even a byproduct or, innocent bystander or exposed to the violence and crime and gangs out there because of the environment I was in. But then I'm like, well, wait a minute, like, yeah, we taught our children different. We're involved with our kids.
Mm-hmm.
My parents work. My mom has mental health illness, right? To say that they were actively involved in my life is not the case. So that was already a significant difference, right? Like, you know what? We're already involved in it. We're involved in our children's lives. So them going down a path um, that is uh, risky or whatnot, that's not even the case, and it shouldn't even be questioned because we know that, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's like you mentioned, it's just that fear of a parent, right? Like wanting to keep them in a bubble and wanting to protect them from everything that's out there. But the reality is that at some point in time, right, they have to travel life with caution, right? And we have to take a step back and be like, we've offered you what we could. Now it's up to you to move forward and continue on.
Yeah. Yeah. I have just like a personal experience in that, like not so long ago. So, my wife would tell me at times that I kind of would overshare with my son, but I'm like, no, I want him to know what life is really like. Like
Sure.
it could be nasty, it could be ugly. So, I've talked to him about a lot of stuff. I've talked to him about, some of my wrong choices that I've done as a younger man. One of the topics came up, like substance use, drinking, and stuff like that. So I've always tried to gear to have an open conversation with him about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to say his first month when he was out there, he texted me. He's like, "Hey, Dad, some of the guys are going to go drinking. Da 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 da. We've had this conversation, Dad, but I want to see what it's like, Dad."
Mm-hmm.
So I told him, there's consequences to it. Like, be mindful. Da 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 da.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, okay, I will. I'm gonna be, I'll be, I'll be safe, Dad. Don't worry. That
Mm-hmm.
fear kicked in. I'm like, like, what if somebody spikes his drink? What if this? What if that? All the fears kick in. But I kind of had to
Mm-hmm.
sit back and think. As a parent, I gotta let him go and make his own decisions too. If he's gonna
Mm-hmm.
decide that he wants to make wrong choices and overly drink or not drink enough, then that's his
Mm-hmm.
decision. He's a grown man
Yeah.
at this point. And he did. He ended up having a little too much drinks,
Mm-hmm.
to the point where when we seen him, you could see his face from throwing up. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, what's up, dude? So we had to have that hard conversation. And I'm like, I understand. And he's like, I just wanted to see what it was like, Dad. Da, da, da. I know we talked about it, and it was kind of eye opening because it was like I've taught him everything not to do these certain things, but at the same time, I can only protect him so much.
Yeah.
He's gonna make his choices. He's gonna do what he has to do. But fast forward to today. Um, Not so long ago, we were at my brother-in-law's house and they were drinking and stuff like that. And they're like, "Ruben, you want something?" And he was like, no way."
Yeah.
He's like, "I've had my experience. I don't like it." And my
Yeah.
brother-in-law pulled him to the side and he's like, "Yeah, Ruben, like, you don't have to fit in, dude.
Yeah.
Like, make your choice. Do what you have to do. This alcohol could be something scary, man. Like,
Yeah.
it could lead to a lot of things, man." And I had a conversation with him too. I'm like, "Yeah, Ruben, like, I don't know if you know, but one of your mom's friends in high school actually died because of drinking. Like, he got so drunk that he fell asleep and he tried to throw up and he was asleep and that's the way
Choked
he
on his,
died."
yeah.
Yeah. So those fears kick in, but again, I have to understand that he is his own man. He's gonna make his own choices, but I have to let him make mistakes too.
Yeah, and they're gonna make them,
Yeah.
and
That was
and that's a good example of how the trust is there and the relationship, the communication's there, right?
yeah.
That when you have that with your kids will come to you to at least have the conversation with you, because if not, they're gonna do it anyway, and they're gonna do it behind your back, right? And you're not gonna be aware of it. You're not gonna be able to offer some advice or a suggestion, right? I mean, again, right, we don't have, we may be completely opposed to what they're doing, and we're like, but it doesn't mean that they're still not going to do it, right? Like, we might say, you know what, I completely disagree, I don't, but what if they still go and they do it without our awareness, right? Might as well have that conversation,
Yeah.
like I told our son, I said, you know what, Jacob, I said, I appreciate and I respect you for actually having dialogue with us about you wanting to join the military, as opposed to being one of those individuals that goes, signs up, and then tells their parents a day or 2 days a week before, hey, by the way,
By the way,
I
I'm
joined the
leaving.
military and I'm leaving, right? I said, because it's allowed us to process this and to figure out how we're going to be able to help you,
Mhm.
um, to make sure that this experience, that you make the best out of this experience.
Mhm.
And he was like, yeah, he's like, you know what, I have a lot of respect for you guys, you guys have been great parents, and so I want to make sure that you guys are aware of what's going on and why I'm making these decisions. And I said, okay, that's perfectly fine. I said, now that we understand why you're making these decisions and you feel like this is good for you, go all in, do your thing, and know that we're here, and anything that we can do for you, just let us know. And so right now, with the government shutdown,
Mhm.
right, um, military is not being paid. So all the recruits, all the trainees that are in boot camp and so forth, they're not getting paid. What they get paid, for being in the military. And he's had to buy some things, and so my wife has access to his bank account,
Mhm.
and we put money in there, and she's monitoring the account. And I just sent them a letter and I said, hey, by the way, I said, you know what, I want you to know that I know that right now, you're in a stressful environment. You're not getting paid, and you might need things. You might need to go and buy things, in on base. Um, but the last thing I want you to worry about is money. I said the money's going to be there. If you need anything, know that you know what, your card will always have money, so you can go, right.
Mhm.
And so he sent us a letter saying that, the military issued boots that they get, that they're not the best boots, right? They're very generic boots that everybody gets, and he's been getting a lot of blisters and stuff, right? He's all like, so I need to buy me some good quality boots, because we do a lot of running, we do a lot of training, and so forth. So I told my wife, I said, you know what, deposit $300, into his account, so he can go and buy his boots. Boots are like $250,
Mhm.
and I'm like, so that he has so that he knows he has the support, and he has, he's able to, to get the gear that he needs to make this experience the best experience for him, right?
Mhm.
So, right, so we're able to support him in that way, and we're able to prepare too, right? Because can you
Mhm.
imagine, all of a sudden, right? And it's like you're trying to process everything. You're trying to understand, the separation and the
Mhm.
loss, that you might not be fully available, right, mentally and emotionally, to be in a place of being able to help to the best of your ability, right?
Mhm.
So it's important for us to guide our children through their life journey, and to be supportive of, their life journey, because yeah, they're gonna be making choices moving forward,
Mhm.
without us.
Yeah. But I think you made a valid point. I think one of the big things that stands out to me is the relationship that we have with our children. I think it makes it less stressful for me to know what he's doing and where he's at because of that relationship we have.
Sure.
Like for me growing up, I never really had the opportunity to have that dialogue with my parents. Like me and my wife were
Absolutely.
talking about it the other day where our son told us some stuff and I was like, what? What do you mean?
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay. And I told my wife, I was like, would you have felt comfortable telling your mom or dad that? She's like, no. I'm like,
Yeah.
wow, like, okay. So that makes me realize that it lessens the stress for me
Yes.
to
Absolutely.
focus on like what he's doing because we have that dialogue. We have that
Absolutely.
availability to talk to him and like you said, your son came to you and told you, hey dad, this is what I'm thinking of doing. Like,
Yeah.
he wanted your opinion on it because he respect the fact of how much effort you put to be there for him, not only financially,
Yes.
but emotionally to
Yes.
have that conversation, which I don't think we had growing up,
Yeah. Exactly.
which I think causes it's like a teeter totter effect. It causes us to be more stressed about it because of that factor, I think, but also lightens the load as well on the opposite end too,
Yes.
because we have that open communication with our children to have those difficult conversations that we may feel like, hey, like, dude, I don't think you're ready for that, but we're like, I got to give you the opportunity to go out there and do what you want to do and possibly make some mistakes and possibly, thrive to the best of your ability.
Yeah. You know, I think one of the biggest, biggest mistakes that perhaps our parents made, that maybe some parents or some men are making now as well, is taking on that authoritative role, where you don't allow for flexibility in mentoring, in guiding your children, and growing the relationship so your children become close to you, right?
Mhm.
Some parents, like my parents, right, they were very critical, right? When conversations took place, it was about what I was doing wrong or what I needed to do because they said so.
Mhm.
So what it did to me was it pulled me away from them
Mhm.
in being able to share with them some of the things that I should have shared with them, you know.
Mhm.
Now in my book, after having written my book, in my book I actually write, and my dad got to read it, and he was not aware that there was a few times that I could have been killed, right? Guns pulled on me and everything. And where was my dad? Who knows? Working with friends, fixing cars. Where was my mom? Dealing with her mental health issues, being fixated on church, hours at a time per day, every day, right? While I was trying to navigate this world by myself, right?
Mhm.
So it pulled me away, and it made me become very distant from them, that
Mhm.
they had no clue about a lot of what was going on in my life. And I was like, that is not what I want with my kids. I
Mhm.
want my kids to be able to feel comfortable with me, to be able
Mhm.
to come to me, right? Like you've mentioned, right?
Mhm.
And to be open about having discussions without the fear of being criticized, ridiculed, or shamed
Yeah.
for a
Prosecute.
mistake or something. Yeah, prosecuted for a mistake or
Yeah.
something that they did. No, right? The contrary, right? As a parent, as a mentor, as a guide, the responsibility is our responsibility is to be able to take that information and soften the burden, and as frustrating as we can be, take on an approach of teaching, right, and mentoring, right,
Yeah.
and letting them know that it was a bad choice, and yes, like you mentioned, it has consequences, and holding them accountable, and hopefully they grow and they learn from that process, right, because
Yeah.
when they go out in life, like we what this podcast is about, guiding them through life and through life's journey isn't always all good, right? There's going to be some bad involved, but we're going to feel better as parents knowing that our children are making um, more sane and wiser decisions, right? And
Mhm.
especially if they come to us for guidance and help, and we're willing to offer that. It's a win-win.
Yeah. And I think, like I said, I think that's what lightens that stress factor. I think the stress factor is still there because we're parents and
Sure.
we're supposed to be a protective factor, but we also have to acknowledge with our own thoughts and for me, a lot of it's been faith, leaning on that and knowing, no, he's going to be okay because my God's out there protecting him. Number one, and two, I've done everything that I could to be a good father, and it's hard looking at that too because that self criticism, that trauma, kicks back in, and it's like, am I a good father? Did I?
Right.
But having that partner, like my wife recently, we had talked about it, and she's like, no, you're thriving as a dad. Like,
Mhm.
look at our son. Look at the conversations you guys have. And I'm
Right.
like, okay. I'm like, because that self doubt is still there
Sure.
because of
Yeah.
the environment I grew up in. But it's like, no, like, I think that's what lightens my load on
Hmm.
understanding, no, he's going to be okay because, again, I have my God out there that protects him. And two, I've done the best that I could do. And, I've recently,
Absolutely.
like, I think I talked about it in one of our previous podcasts. My barber actually had asked me, like, how do you feel that you've done with Ruben? Like, he's like, I've watched him grow up so much in the time that you've been here. He's been our barber for whew, since Ruben, what, for the past 12 years. Since Ruben
Oh
was
wow.
6. So he's like, how do you feel that you've done? And I'm like, I think I've broken that cycle. I think I've been able to teach him a lot and have a good understanding with him and have that open communication. And that's what I know that I'm doing okay. He's like, yeah. He's like, I sit here and have conversations with him, and I just think, hopefully, I could be a father like you. And I'm like, why you gotta go? I'm like, are you trying to make me cry, dude? Like, don't
Yeah.
do that. He's like, no. He's like, us men need to tell each other when we're doing good. And he's like, Ruben's an amazing young man, and you could tell that you and your wife have put a lot of effort into it, and that's what, again, lightens that fear, lightens the anxiety of it, and it's
Yeah.
like, okay. I'm like, wow. And then,
Absolutely.
okay.
Yeah. It's it's it isn't an easy process by all means, right?
Yeah.
But it is um, settling to know that we're not dealing with different situations leaning to the far negative, right?
Yeah.
In other words, our anxiety or our worry comes from our children going off, you know, initiating their journey as adults, etc., right? But in a good way, right?
Mm.
As opposed to we're stressed and worried because our children are not home. We don't know where they're at.
Yeah.
They're involved with the wrong people,
Hmm.
right? They show up when they want to. They don't give us much feedback and so forth. So it's a worry, but it's a very different kind of worry, right?
Hmm.
And I think every parent probably strives to have that.
Hmm.
Somewhere along the way, though, the process probably shifts,
Yeah.
and it creates the um, an unfortunate outcome, right? So
Hmm.
I think for us as us fathers, it's about and I have to be upfront, right? Because I think our listeners will appreciate this. For us fathers, is about really letting our ego go putting that to the side, being authoritative, being rude, disrespectful to our kids, being demeaning doesn't make us a better man, and it doesn't make us a better parent.
Yeah.
Right? If we want to be better men, if we want to be better parents, then we got to do the opposite. You know, we have to just, put the ego aside. It's not going to hurt us. It's not going to damage us if we just become more flexible, embrace our kids, show them some affection, engage in conversations with them. Things will change for the better.
Yeah. Like I think our first podcast, I always think of it, the machismo portion, putting that
Sure.
machismo aside and not thinking, oh, it's my way or the highway. You have to do lo que yo digo, lo que yo mando. No,
No.
it's allowing them to have voice, being soft, teaching them different. Like we don't have to be these tough
Right.
guys that want to, dominate everything.
Yeah, you can be assertive,
Yeah,
right?
you can be
You
assertive.
can be assertive. You can be direct with respect,
Yeah.
right? And maintain or preserve the relationship
Mm-hmm.
without having to be rude and
Yeah.
authoritative, and disrespectful in a way, right?
Yeah.
Like, and that'll go a long way, in
Mm-hmm.
relationships. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
And a lot of it is learning because I did a
yes,
lot of that in my early stages of fatherhood.
no, and I agree. I'm
And
guilty of that myself.
yeah,
Like I think because it's part of we bring with us part of our past, right?
yeah,
And when you're a father for the first time, the only blueprint that you have to go off of is what you remember
mm-hmm,
with your parents, right?
yeah,
So you're thinking, let me incorporate that, and but the reality is that then you begin to learn that there's more out there in
mm-hmm,
terms of supporting and raising your children, right, and guiding them through their life journey.
yeah,
That it doesn't have to be that way.
yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So,
Yeah,
well, I think it was a great conversation, about helping our children through their life journey. Um, Tell us what we have coming up next
yeah.
for the next
So
podcast. Yeah.
the next podcast, I know that we kind of touched a little bit on it in the last few podcasts. Is we are going to bring somebody on. We're still trying to identify who we want to have come on, and I just wanted to be an open forum. If we get into mental health, if we get into fatherhood, if we get into manhood, we just want to keep it general and kind of get somebody else's opinion on the way they were raised, the way life is, the way struggles are. There's a lot of different factors that we could get into based off on quite a few different topics that we've discussed during these podcasts.
Yeah, that's going to be
Um,
great. I'm
yeah,
excited, to have somebody else's perspective, right, and their
yeah,
life experience in different areas of life, right?
yeah,
Not one specific area. And for us to be able to offer it in a very genuine and organic way, right?
yeah,
Like nothing's prescribed or right.
yeah,
It's going to flow and it's going to be
yeah,
just all natural, and
yeah,
we're going to allow it to unfold, which
yeah,
I think will help people uh, connect with that genuineness, right? So,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Like I said, the main purpose of these podcasts are just to teach, and have an opening to different points of views of people. I think me and you have so much in common. I think bringing other people on is going to get different views and different points on other men that are probably out there that are like, okay, you guys have a lot in common. I may not have that in common. So bringing other people in is going to give us the opportunity to reach different people in different aspects in life.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, everyone, I hope you guys had a great time, watching the podcast. Stay tuned for the next one. I know it's going to be a great podcast. There's going to be a lot of takeaways from it. So please tune in and join in for the next one. All right. You all have a great day, and we look forward to seeing you guys next time around.
All right. Take care. It worked. Stop.